in 2 or 3 years with how these rookies and Jalen Green might look, or what you can get if you trade any of those guys in another deal, maybe that grade can bump up. This is what we had to say for the trade that involved Kevin Durant going to the Houston Rockets in exchange for Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks, the pick that became Khaman Maluach, and 5 second-round picks that were eventually flipped around in some later moves that we'll get to here in a second. Obviously, it's August, but Gerald, what are you rolling with grading the KD trade?
I'm going with a C-. I still have serious doubts about Jalen Green and Devin Booker's fit. I do like Dillon Brooks, and I like the fact that you got your own pick back, a top 10 pick in this year's draft, and I like what they did with that pick. But at the same time, trading Kevin Durant 2.5 years into trading for him after all that you gave up to get him for this kind of package, it's always going to be somewhat of a loss to me. So I think Gregory did the best he could given where KD's value was at, given that they had no trade leverage. But it still wasn't like a winning trade in my book, so I have a hard time giving it a higher grade than that.
Yeah, for me, just because of what it seems like was actually accessible for them as far as returns that they could entertain, and teams would pick up the phone and would be willing to dance with them, wasn't much out there.
Yeah. Because
of that, in addition to how they flipped those things they did get in return and made value moves through the draft, that has to be a B for me. I struggle to bring it anywhere higher than a B, but I think that is a B type of recoup for them, if you will.
This one was really tough. This was definitely the one that I went back and forth on the most. And, like grading on a curve, part of me was like, yeah, they were put in a really tough situation, right? And it wasn't a situation that Brian Gregory made. It was one that the PHNX Suns made, trying to shop KD behind his back at the deadline.
Right.
And then getting that to the point where he didn't want to be on the team anymore, and teams knew that. And pseudo forced his way to a couple of teams, including the Houston Rockets, obviously on that list. I said in the moment I didn't love Jalen Green as the center of a package. I've felt a little bit better about that as time went on. I feel better because you did get the rookie class that you got. And at the end of the day, they are rookies, though. So it's like, how much stock can we put into that? And if we're grading it at the time, like I'm okay with just going with a solid C, maybe a C+ or a B. I'm not mad at anybody who wants to go higher than that. But at the end of the day, you did trade somebody that you gave up a whole lot more for to a Western Conference team that didn't have to end up really parting with any of their major core key pieces that they were trying to build the future around. I know Jalen Green was their number one option on offense in the playoffs and through that season, but it's clear now with who they prioritized in that trade that the players and the assets they didn't want to give up, like the future Suns picks and Jabari Smith, they didn't, right? So you're giving up the best player in the deal. I think you got adequate value back, and maybe in 2 or 3 years with how these rookies and Jalen Green might look, or what you can get if you trade any of those guys in another deal, maybe that grade can bump up.
Oh, yeah. This grade can absolutely bump up if Khaman Maluach turns out to be the monster that the Suns believe he can be in time. Like we've all been saying, we do think it's going to take some time. It's not going to, magically manifest in year one. But if he can pan out, and if Jalen Green can pair better with Devin Booker than I personally am anticipating, then yeah, this grade will obviously bump up.
What would it take for it to go up?
I mean,
C for you, or what would it have taken rather? Because obviously,
like right now,
yeah, obviously there's all perspectives being included with it. But what would it have taken for you to bump it up?
If you got another one of your own picks back, or another first-round pick back, if you were able to snag a Jabari or a Tari along with it, which was possible, those are things where I feel like if you're going to trade with Houston specifically, that could bump it up. Another one would have just been trading him to another team. Obviously, there's context on whether he would have approved that, but like a Minnesota or somebody that might have given you some maybe better fitting players next to Devin Booker for the now.
Yeah, I think Atari being included would have helped. Another draft pick would have helped. I know that wasn't realistic at a certain point, but again, I do think, like you said, Eric, it wasn't just that the Suns found themselves in this position where that was the best they could do. They did put themselves there. And I know we're grading Brian Gregory's move, so we kind of have to differentiate because he was not in charge at that point in time. But it's still kind of a situation that they put themselves in as a franchise. So That's part of my grade for me as well.
Corey says, if Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks help the Suns be good this season and the Rockets underperform, will y'all change your mind then? Absolutely. For sure.
Like I said, a lot of these grades are going to look dumb in retrospect. This is our best attempt at guessing a grade right now.
God, I hope these are dumb. What would it take for you to bump it up? Even though you're already high, it's not like you gave it an A++.
Yeah, if it was gonna be an A, it would have had to have been one more pick and one of Jabari Atari.
Yeah.
But I feel like they went with the pick heavy return. I think that's what they mentioned, right?
They wanted more second rounders, yeah.
Right. So you have to give up not having access to one of those type of players that could have helped you right now immediately.
And I would have said probably in the moment, I probably would have said D-, right when it happened, the day of. The thing that I was happy about was that it was over and that he got traded and that it was just like, okay, we can move on now. Sure. But how you ended up in the draft, which we'll get to here in a second, being able to steal what a lot of people had as a top 5 to 7 pick and another guy that some people had going in the lottery or the top 20 with the 10th and the 31st pick, and the more that I watch Jalen Green film and kind of settle into the idea that he is going to be starting on this team and the fact that he has potential, I feel better about it than in the moment. So it's already bumped up for me than when it happened in the moment. And I think that's about as high as it can go before we actually see some damn basketball getting played.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I would have took that from me. I think on the day of the trade, I think I said C+. So I went up a little bit since then because of the moves that we've seen materialize. But
yeah, okay. But that was not the only trade that the Suns made before the draft, or this one at least during it. Right before selecting Khaman Maluach, they traded 2 first-round picks and Vasa Micic in exchange for Mark Williams and their own second-round pick back. Gerald, we were shocked in the moment when this happened. What do you grade this now that some time has passed?
Yeah, I gave this one a B, and I think I speak for all of us when I say it's going to hinge on how many games Mark Williams plays this season and what type of contract they sign him to as an extension, if they do wind up extending him at all. A lot of people are going to point to, they gave up 2 first-round picks. They gave up the number 29 pick, which they wound up trading all the way up to number 31. So basically wound up moving back 2 slots. And they traded a pick in 2029 that's the least valuable between Utah, Minnesota, and Cleveland. So probably going to be somewhere in the 20s, I would guess. That seems like fair value for Mark Williams, considering you didn't really have to give up anything from a player standpoint. You gave up Vasa Micic, who didn't really even play for the Suns. And I think he's a young player that's worth a flyer. I think we're all concerned about the health, but if he can stay healthy, he can be an above-the-rim presence for the Suns on both ends and give them some rim protection that they sorely lacked last year.
What would you give it, Steven?
I said a B-, and I think at his worst, he will add value for this team. So because of that, he stays as a piece coming in, he stays an above average. Now, where he has room to grow is the health part, like Gerald mentioned, obviously first and foremost. But skill-wise, if he continues to prove that he can do more than the role that he played with Charlotte, but still exude some of those skill type of qualities that he provided, that will add value for the Suns team and unlock some things in ways that they'll certainly need to on offense in particular. He can probably bump up to a B+, if not a A- for me, quite honestly, because the bar for the Suns at the center position was
in hell.
It was the bottom of the ocean.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that this one has a lot of room to bump up. A lot of that is on Mark and staying healthy. I like the trade. I'll give it a B-. I don't hate it. Yeah, I was definitely cheating off of your homework. But I think this is tough because there's so much unknown. And I know it's like, the unknown. But like with this one, he's not under contract for more than the next season, right? He has not played a lot of games over his entire career or in any individual season as well. He has regressed in some certain aspects over the last couple of years from what he came into the league as, especially possibly because of these injuries, I think there's a lot on the table for Mark Williams, and I don't hate the swing that ended up being Liam McNeely at 29, who I'd rather have Rasheer Fleming than. I think if you didn't get Rasheer Fleming, then maybe you'd feel a little worse about this move. And that 2029 first-round pick, as nice as it would be to have a first-round pick to maybe be able to dangle in certain deals right now, like you said, Gerald, was more like a early second-round pick, and those are ones that you could acquire later on. So I'm going to give it a B-, but I do like the Mark Williams trade, especially, I think in the moment when the next thing happened, which we talk about Khaman Maluach, it was a little confusing because it was like, okay, you just spent your number 10 pick on a center that was supposed to go top 5, top 7, and then you traded for Mark Williams, who's also a young center. It was a little confusing, but the more that we kind of settle into the fact that Maluach likely won't be ready to take on a large role in the NBA in year one, and they do believe in his 3-ball, the Suns do, and maybe they could play together, that makes a little bit more sense. So I think a B- is reasonably optimistic for giving up what could end up being 2 first-round picks, as low as they might be, for somebody who might not be either worthy or sign a contract extension with you after this season.
Yeah. And it's worth remembering, I think the Lakers gave up a first-round pick in Dalton Connect, who was a rookie who was a first-round pick. So it's kind of similar value in my book.
Yeah, but the
Lakers got, everybody loved it for the Lakers.
Sure.
But for the Suns, what are they doing?
I mean, it was on the heels of Luka, so it was like, of course, everybody loved it.
Yeah,
those frauds.
We all silly like the mayor.